The Strategic Hotbox with Dr. Brandi Luv Stankovic. Discussing leadership, business, and how to take control of your life and achieve greatness. From the streets of Las Vegas, energized, informed, and never diluted. It's time to kick some ass.
Hey, it's your girl, Dr. Brandi Stankovic, here on the Strategic Hotbox. Thank you all for joining us. We are ready to learn, love, and kick ass. As all of you know that have been a part of the Hotbox before, but if maybe you haven't and this is your first time, you're in for a treat. As I mentioned, we learn, love, and kick ass. In the learn section, we'll get to know a new topic and meet a new subject matter expert. And then we always talk about love, the importance of relationships and business and how humans need to work together. And then finally, we'll give you some kick-ass takeaways and tools so you can start executing and making a difference and just getting out there, making things happen in the industry starting today. And we always bring about a diverse perspective. So people from all different industries and walks of life. And today we're going to talk about crushing it. And I absolutely love I even got just goosebumps just now, even saying that. I love the idea of taking leadership to the next level. As you know, we've talked to different individuals in this topic, and it is about really how we can apply some of this in our everyday. Maybe that's working with employees. Maybe it's just you and you're an entrepreneur out in the field, or maybe you've been doing this for 30 years and you're just trying to ride out and leave the legacy that you want to leave. But really crushing it, building a growth, understanding what we need to do as human beings and develop is so critical. I was talking to a colleague recently, it was actually earlier in the year, but she called to pick my brain on the things that she was doing or that I might be doing for personal development in the year ahead. And she sets aside budget, and she sets aside time in order to do that. And I thought, gosh, you know, when it comes to time, when it comes to personal development, why don't we budget for that more, right? We budget for our dollars. We might set some goals and some personal goals, but really do we carve out a portion over the life saying, how am I going to get better? Where are the areas in my life that I want to improve? And how can I be a better boss, a better partner, a better spouse, a better parent, a better leader, all these things in our lives, wherever your priorities lie. And so having conversations like we will today, I think are so critical. So without further ado, I would like to introduce our expert. We have Dr. Kate Hickson with us today, an expert instructional designer, learning strategist, consultant. She's out there working with different businesses and big businesses too, and telling them how they also can be better. So welcome, Dr. Kate. How are you?
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited for this conversation. I love your work. I love everything that you stand for and talk about. So, gosh, thank you. Thank you.
Don't make me fangirl already. It's pretty early episode for me to start blushing here, Kate. Thank you so much for being a part of it. So, you know, when I was creeping you prior to this conversation, I saw on your website that you come from a long line of badasses, daredevils, engineers, elite athletes. Does crazy just run in your family?
I think it does. And, you know, for the record, I am not necessarily one of those badasses, as much as I would love to be, but I'm not a daredevil. More so, I study those people. So I have a doctorate degree, I have a PhD, and I love geeking out. I love being a nerd. I love seeing what the research has to say about peak performance. I love trying to understand what makes someone great. What's their special sauce? What can we learn from that and take away and apply to our own lives? So again, I'm not necessarily a daredevil myself, but I love to play one on TV.
I love that. You know, you bring up a good point. I work with a lot of young people, and there's a transition that kids becoming adults go through, from my perspective, in they grow up their whole lives and everyone's telling them what to do, right? They in classrooms sit up straight, look forward, the club desks are all forward. There's so much structure. And so kids, especially like high school kids, love to just be rebels within the structure, right? And I think that when we become adults and that structure disappears, really that's when the differentiation occurs of people that can grow with themselves, can think for themselves, right? I've always said that talent isn't a differentiator, hard work is.
Absolutely.
So understanding that elite performance of whether it's athletes or business individuals or even people that are great at home with their kids and their families, it's where that sauce comes from, right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And how we can apply that to our own lives.
Mhm.
I might not be a pro surfer or, on the Supreme Court or, high up in politics or whatever it might be, right? Whatever your definition of greatness might look like to you, but it still is understanding, well, how can we be great in our own lives then?
Mhm.
What can we do to excel and be the best possible version of ourselves?
Yeah, and I think given everything that everyone listening and watching have been through in the last few years, if you think like the pandemic is 4 years ago, which is
Yeah,
just
right.
right, and there's been so much happening in the world, it's also kind of reinvigorating that greatness periodically too, right?
Yeah, I love that you said that. Absolutely. Like giving ourselves an opportunity to take a breath, pause, and then hit that refresh button, right? Like, how can we level up? What does that look like? I
Yeah.
love
Yeah. And you have a diverse background. I actually have some insider information of you running different businesses and
Yeah.
how what that looked like. But you have a diverse background in lots of different businesses. What was your journey to get you to where you are today?
Goodness, I've always had a gravitational pull towards academics, as I mentioned, nerd at heart over here, right? So I've stuck largely within academia, whether from a corporate route, university level, working for large nonprofits, big global organizations. However, I also have a very strong streak of entrepreneurialism. So my father started and owned, managed so many businesses while I was growing up, and that had a huge impact on me of I don't want to go the normal route in my life. I don't want to climb that corporate ladder. I've done it. I've been there, done that. But I just like to think outside the box a little bit with how I approach my life. I like to do things a little bit differently. And so because of that, it has led me on so many different paths. Again, so many different businesses that I've been a part of. And I love the ability to be creative and not follow just one set path in life. So
Mhm.
for me, my personality type, that works super well. I certainly have nothing against those that prefer a more structured lifestyle or maybe do want to climb that corporate ladder. There certainly is something to be said for having a defined path to go on as well.
Yeah.
Just didn't work well for me.
I'm with you, and I think that can shift in someone's career as well. I
Yeah.
mean, there were points in my life where I loved just being given a to-do list, and
Right.
now if I had to sit in a cubicle or office, like,
Right.
and not be able to travel, not to be able to be with my clients, sit out in the world, I
Yeah.
wouldn't be able to do it. So
Yeah.
there's an ebb and flow of that.
Absolutely. You're so right. And it also depends upon life moments too, right? So I'm a mother as well. I have two very young children right now, ages 5 and 2. And when I was first going through those pregnancies or when they were infants at home, I mean, I preferred a to-do list, right? Like that's when I craved more normalcy or structure in my life.
Mhm.
But at the same time, whenever I'm able to break free, it certainly is stimulating.
Well, and I love hearing about moms in business and women in business because there is a lot to balance and thought, and that applies to anybody that's a parent. But I certainly relate on the mother side, and my boys are 11 and 13 already, so they're becoming little
Wow.
men very very quickly. One of them's darn near my height now, and so but I. Being a woman in business and being a mother in business, there's also been a balance of trying to not if I'm going to be a dictator on the job, then being it's probably more the other way, right? I try to walk around, tell them what to do at home, and they they do what they want anyway. But it is a lot of balance of that, and so speaking to that, do you ever feel like sensitive or weak, or what do you do to kind of pop out of that mode? I don't know if that is too
Oh,
straightforward of a.
gosh, no. I mean, that's such a great question. That's such an important question. I think that so many of us moms or just parents, right, struggle with that. It's so hard at times to balance playing that role, again, whether it's a mother, father, whatever role it might be,
Mhm.
balancing that with your professional pursuits. I saw something funny the other day on the internet where something to the effect of, having a toddler and I can, control my business. I can, put people in their place. I can be this strong entrepreneur, whatever it might be. But when it comes to having a toddler, like they're going to put me in my place.
I can do everything but get my children to put their shoes on. I mean,
Exactly.
let's
Yeah,
be real.
100%, 100%. And I think what has worked well for me, at least, is just having a sense of humor.
Mhm.
Just being able to laugh about it, because what's the alternative? Like, I want to pull my hair out or weep, right?
Mhm.
But instead, just recognizing the absurdity in the day-to-day situations that we go through. That's the only thing that's worked for me.
Yeah. And for whatever my path or career has been, in business, I'm never uh, emotional, like in showing
Yeah,
physical emotions, right? And
right.
so most of the people that have only known me in a business capacity have no idea of that sensitive side of me. But then
Wow.
people that
Yeah.
only know me personally don't know anything else. And so
Yeah.
I've said to some friends, like, no one in business has ever seen me cry, and they're like, whatever. And I'm going,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it's one of those things of like being able to have both sides. And I'm not suggesting that individuals shouldn't be vulnerable on the job.
Of
It's
course.
all about being
Of course.
vulnerable and authentic, but I
Right.
have a better ability of keeping it outside
Yeah.
versus when I'm around my kids, I can't control it.
It's the split personalities that we all have.
Yes, definitely. So what motivates you? What do you look for or look to for inspiration?
Mm. I crave a challenge. I crave learning something new, whether that's actual knowledge or a physical skill. Any project that I work on, I'm pretty picky about exactly that. What can I give to my work? What can I give to my clients? That is so important to me. I like to be of service in all that I do. But also on the flip side, what can I get out of this, right? How can I improve myself? What is a growth opportunity or a lesson that I can take away from this too? So it really has to be about a push and a pull, a win-win for everyone.
I love that you offered both sides of that, because so often, especially those that are in service related businesses, maybe they're working the front line, maybe they're in
Right.
retail, maybe they're owning a business, serving clients, that I give to the people that I'm around. And I don't often stop to think, how am I benefiting from this? Or what can I learn from this situation? Or, when
Mhm.
something goes wrong, I think about what I can learn. But when things are going right, I often don't think about that as much.
Yeah. Yeah. Good perspective.
It really is.
Hmm,
Are there
interesting.
any other sources of inspiration for you? Do you have authors or podcasts, or because you have a podcast too as well?
I do, yes. Gosh, I gain inspiration from everything every day. Again, I'm a lifelong learner.
Mhm.
I'm a constant reader. I'm constantly listening to podcasts. I think it's more about what chapter in my life am I on in that particular moment, right? So I might be really heavily thinking about real estate investing, in which case I'm going to be focusing on podcasts that are related to that,
Sure.
or a certain fitness routine, health practice.
Mhm.
My husband just went through, this is crazy, a 4-day long water fast.
Mm.
So quite a few steps more intense than intermittent fasting.
Mhm.
So, we did a lot of reading and listening along those topics. So
Mhm.
again, I think there's just so much to learn out there in the world. So just
Yes,
paying
absolutely.
attention.
And so was he like really fun to be around for those 4 days,
He
or?
actually was so calm and
Wonderful.
like very pleasant. And I was shocked because I'm the exact opposite. If I don't eat like every couple hours, I am absolutely that hangry person. So the fact that he went days, I will never understand.
It's so healthy though. I definitely believe in fasting. And you're right. If someone's thirsty,
Mhm.
then understanding knowledge, you can go down rabbit holes. Knowledge is so much more accessible. I don't know if
Yeah,
when you did your PhD, I know, but the internet existed when I finished my doctorate.
yeah,
And I
yeah.
think back to those that didn't have that access,
Oh, I
and being in a
yeah.
library looking up journals and things like that.
Yeah, I cannot imagine. Well, and now in today's world, of course, with AI,
Mm,
right? So much more information at our fingertips, and not just researching or reading, but the ability to generate information and content for us. I mean, it's astounding. It's
mhm.
staggering.
And it's amazing the intolerance my children have at not getting information quickly. So we'll be
Right.
driving and they'll ask me a question. I don't know. And they're like, well, I mean, ask Siri. Like, why are we continuing to not know in this moment? You know, it's amazing how that is. So there's there's good sides and there's challenges in what we do. What do you think are some of the hardest clients to work with?
Gosh. So I am a freelancer by choice. As I mentioned earlier, I've done the corporate route and I certainly learned so much and built a great portfolio, built a great network via going the corporate route. But since going off of my own and being a freelancer, I mean, honestly, all clients are good because they have to be. That's how I make a place in the world is via my clients.
Mhm.
With that being said, where I struggle sometimes is perhaps with a client who maybe they don't know what they want or need, or they perhaps can't articulate that, or maybe they're changing their mind throughout the development and design process. And that's certainly fine, right? And I encourage that. I think part of being a consultant, though, is being able to help draw that out from
Sure.
people, help them to understand what they are looking for, what do they need, and how we can create a solution together to
Mhm.
solve the problems for them. We just hope that it can arise fairly quickly as opposed to, a 6-month process to figure that out.
Right. Right. And I agree. I think the hardest clients from my perspective, well, one, we often will joke, you know, I'm walking on eggshells now. Once it started coming out of my mouth, I thought, well, my clients probably listen to this and go, I'm okay. But we often
Chummy.
exactly. We often talk amongst the colleagues of that some of these businesses are just wildly dysfunctional. And they're like, well, if they weren't, then I wouldn't have a place,
Right, right, right.
in this
Yes,
universe. So I'm thankful that there is some dysfunction and that I can be there to support
yeah,
them to achieve their goals. But
yeah.
the hardest clients I think to work with, you hit it spot on, are ones that don't know what they want, right? And so
Mhm.
that's a good lesson for us as leaders, is making sure that we are crystal clear on where we're going, what we want, and then it's just a matter of slowly or quickly getting there, right? And I
Right.
think
Yeah.
the other side of it is I struggle for any new consultants or those that are out there serving people and are relatively new, that making sure that you have top leadership, board, executive leadership buy-in. Because I
Yes.
definitely have been hired by the next in line. And then you
Mhm.
put these great programs in place to create this perfect
Yeah.
solution. And then it is not supported or not,
Oh my gosh, yes. That
executed.
is such a good point. And to take that a step further, I would say alignment with the business, right? So making sure that all the work that we do as consultants, whether internal, external, whatever that role might be, but ensuring that we're always aligning with those overarching business objectives. That can make our work so much easier if we're talking the same talk, walking the same walk.
Mhm, mhm. And then I think when I think about failures or challenges, it's about failing faster, right? And I even tell
Mhm.
this to my children, tell me what happened so we can get through it. It's less about you worrying about me being mad or any of those kinds of things. It's
Yeah.
figuring out what happened so we can get to an end result. What role does failure play for you?
Oh, goodness. A huge role all the time, all the time. I have discussions every day with team members, with my children, with my husband of what did you fail at today? What did you struggle with today? What was hard today? Turning it into just part of life where we just expect it, right? We just expect it. We know something will be difficult every day.
Mhm,
Fine, no big deal. But then how do we get around it? How do we move past it? How do
mhm,
we flip that on its head and turn it into a source of inspiration?
mhm,
Or how do we resolve around it? How do we problem solve? Right. But I mean, I think failure is so remarkably valuable to all of us
mhm.
and should be talked about all the time.
You're right. And yeah, and debriefing
Mhm,
and having conversations to the fact of what we can change, what we could do
mhm,
differently, how we contributed to the failure, or how
mhm,
we reacted and whether it was well,
mhm,
etc. I think that failure is critical, and the
mhm.
hope is it brings emotional maturity, right?
Yes, yes,
Instead
well
of
said.
emotional flinching, or when we get worried about things and not internalize things. And I think having that debrief, that post-mortem, and talking through some of those things and being supportive of the team that we have
Mhm.
is or clients is so critical, because that we don't want to end up having scar tissue or flinching in places of failure. Oh,
Yes, very well said.
go ahead, please.
Oh, just saying, very well said. Love it.
I absolutely love your line here that I saw, that it says, don't be good when you can be great, and then don't stop at great, learn how to crush.
Yes.
And so you have a crush method.
Yeah.
Tell me, what is this crush method?
Yeah, I appreciate you referencing that line, because I think that's so important. Don't stop at good, don't stop at great. How can we take it to the next level? So the crush method, I told you I'm a geek at heart and I love looking for scientific evidence. I am one of the few people where I love reading the academic journal articles and trying to pull out patterns, make sense of them, make them digestible, right? So along the lines of peak performance, what makes people tick, what's a secret sauce, how can we apply that to our own life? I just started combing over all the research and trying to look for those patterns. What does that actually look like? And at the end of the day, it's actually pretty darn simple. So when we think about crush, you just kind of isolate the first letter. So you have C, catalyst. So what was that initial moment for you where you decided you needed a change?
Mm-hmm.
What was that spark? What was that idea? What was that something? Like, every high performer has that initial moment, that catalyst. You move to the R and it's about resolution. So having the resolve to then step further in your life, to take it to the next level, to gain this new skill, to gain this new knowledge. Like, you have to have that grit, right? Which relates to the next letter, which is U. So that's unwavering. That's about dedication. That's where, the practice comes in. That's where your stubbornness has to really come in. Because otherwise, I mean, what you're going to give up?
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to see it through. Well, that's not an option. You have to keep going. So the next letter down is stamina. So that's the inner strength, the mental strength, or the physical strength. Again, going back to practice, right? Keep going, keep trying, building up those muscles, whether mental or physical, to move you forward on your path and through your journey. And then, of course, the last letter is habit. So the H is for habit. And that's where it becomes ingrained in you, where you are so adept at this new skill or this goal or this source of knowledge that it's just part of your daily life. Because the point being, of course, that once you reach a goal, you shouldn't just stop and say, yes, well, I did it. I'm going to check the box. Now I've gone on to a higher level performance. No, instead, it should be about continuing on that path, continuing that knowledge or skill, whatever it might be for you.
Mm-hmm.
And then thinking about, well, how can you take that new bit of knowledge or skill and level it up again? Mm-hmm. So use that as a stepping stone to then go on to an additional piece of greatness.
Mm-hmm.
So as I said, it's actually quite simple,
Mm-hmm.
but it more is about, do you have the dedication to get through it, right?
Yeah. I mean, because it's so often we'll have a catalyst, right? We'll have a spark, whether it's wanted or it punches us in the face, right? Things occur in life that are then become the urgency to get things done. But I love the balance of this crush method, because there is that unwavering piece. There is that stamina piece of perseverance. I think I may have shared this on the podcast before, but I did a sprint triathlon, but a short triathlon years ago. And during the swim, the weather out at Lake Mead was terrible, and it was windy. And then I get in and I cut my foot immediately on a rock. And then we start taking off swimming, and a woman has a breakdown because of being in, I don't know, deep water or something. And so the jet skis come over to save her and pretty much cover the rest of us. And there was this moment out in the water that I was like, the only way this gets done is if I do it.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems so simple, but the perseverance that the grit that has come from something as simple as swimming straight out and swimming straight back, is like you said, it's unwavering. There's stamina in that. And then you can build on that as a human being. But I also love the idea of the habit, and that piece of not only is it leveling up, but then also reminding ourselves periodically if we get off course, right? That this is something that we can weave into our lives and have become something that is more habitual, that is more inherent.
Right. Absolutely. And we'd like to think it's a day-to-day practice, right? That we're just always achieving for this greatness, that we're always trying to accomplish the next best thing.
Mhm.
That's not necessarily the reality, right? Because that's hard. It's
Mhm.
exhausting. And we have life, we have work, we might have kids, we have relationships, we have all these things we're trying to balance. So it for those of us who aren't, Olympic professional level athletes, where it truly is a day-to-day practice.
Mhm.
It's more so, well, how can it be at least habitual?
Mhm.
What does that look like? Maybe it's not every day. Could it be every week? Could it be every month?
Right.
What does it look like for you and what you're trying to accomplish? But at least stick with it with some degree of consistency.
Yes. And I think it's also applying it in other areas, right? So getting my doctor, for example, was a lifelong dream. And so it was always like, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. I've just got to make it happen.
Yeah.
And then I got there and I finished and it was like, okay, well, now what? Right?
Yeah,
Like
right?
it's one of those moments of how can I apply those skills, those patterns, those things that I learned in studying and setting aside time and doing all that to other areas of my life that I want to improve, or setting new goals and kind of continuing that on.
I love that. And
So
congratulations, by the way, on all of your hard work. That's
oh,
amazing.
thank you. I feel like it's old news at this point, but thank you very much, and to you as well. All right, so I have a couple fill in the blanks for you. If I
Cool.
could, I would blank every day.
Oof, I would play.
I love that. Is this like with kids? Is this play with your
Play.
husband? Is
So
this
one thing that I've been thinking about a lot lately, and I've just started to explore this and try to put some thoughts on paper, is that concept of play, of joy, right?
Mhm.
Like, where does that come from for you? And for everyone, it's different. So, pickleball. So when I play pickleball with my friends, we are howling laughing. Like, we don't take it incredibly seriously. Like, I am literally doubled over laughing at
I
times. I've
love it.
fallen over, and it's like that is so euphoric. That
Mhm.
is so much like, so that's the purest definition of fun that I can
Yeah.
think of, right? So why don't we think about that more as adults? Why don't we focus more on play? Why don't we focus more on joy? Like, so many of us, myself included,
Mhm.
we're focused on that overachievement, the crush, the
Mhm.
grind, the accomplish the next goals. And that's so important. But as they say, work hard, play hard.
Yeah.
So why have we forgotten the play hard?
It's
So
great.
I'm trying to focus on that more. Check back in a couple months.
Okay, I will. Or I'll come just find myself in Denver and then we'll have
Yes,
to
yes,
do a little playing together.
yes.
The world would be a better place if
People had more empathy.
mm,
I think empathy is so profoundly critical.
mhm.
That idea of putting ourselves in other people's shoes, like that's where kindness comes from. That's where generosity comes from. Empathy.
Thank you. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to head out to a shout out and we'll come back and we'll leave everybody with a kick-ass takeaway.
Hey guys, this is Yasel from Cuba. I'm reporting from this beautiful Havana for the very, very, very hot box. Enjoy it.
Thank you to my friends from Cuba. I love that shout out for the very, very hot box. I love it. So thank you to everybody for sending shout outs and for submitting those to us. And so if we could leave everybody with a piece of advice or a takeaway, what would it be?
Mm. I want to piggyback on one thing that I was just saying, that idea of work hard, play hard. Don't forget the play part.
Mhm.
Definitely take yourself seriously with your personal goals, your professional goals. There's so many tools and resources out there to help you accomplish whatever you're trying to accomplish.
Mhm.
Don't forget at the end of the day to carve out some time for yourself too, and try to get that belly laughter. It's so
Yeah.
important,
I like laughing so hard that my face starts hurting.
right?
I don't know if that's a sign that I don't smile enough or that I'm just having a really good time. If people wanted to get a hold of you, how could they do so?
Sure. Best way is probably through my website, katehickson.com. And I love hearing from folks all around the world. That's what makes this life so special, right? Being able to collaborate and make new friends.
Thank you so much for being a part of the Strategic Hotbox. And I love the Crush method. I love the things that you're doing to level up leadership. So I appreciate you very much. And that I also want to offer out to all of the people that are listening and watching, we want to hear from you. So if there's a topic you want us to cover here on the Hotbox, please reach out, podcast@strategichotbox.com, or you can hit us up on all of the social medias, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, is that even called Twitter anymore? X, Facebook, YouTube, we're out there. You can find us, Apple, Spotify, TuneIn, and even Roku. So I would love to hear from you. And until I see you again, you better get out there and kick some ass.